Welcome to day 6 of 30 in 30. 30 days, 30 video challenge. This is Sandy with Ignite Best Practices. Today I'm going to talk about our relationship coaching program. It is done under the Prepare Enrich model, which I am a certified facilitator. This is a worldwide known model for couples relationship coaching. It is very robust and it is evidence-based. Just to put a little disclosure of due diligence out there, the difference between relationship coaching and relationship counseling or marriage and family counseling is that if the individuals, as a result of their marital distress or couples or relationship distress, are experiencing 25% or more deficits in their activities of daily living or social interactions, you might be looking at a mental health situation in where you need to consult and receive services from a mental health provider. That being said, another contraindication, and sometimes this is also a contraindication to couples therapy, would be, or family therapy, would be issues of addiction and also issues of domestic violence that is characterological. There's a difference between characterological domestic abuse and situational domestic abuse. And I will open up a different video on that topic of the two different types of domestic abuse and which ones and how they're treated in the mental health area, and they're not able to be helped with life coaching without mental health being involved. So we will open up a conversation about that a little later. But that being said, assuming that everything is well and we're just like, we're having a little bit of problem, we know if we don't do something, this could become a problem. We want to do this. The couples going through this system, and somehow or another, the Prepare and Reach program has different parts and portions of evidence-based, already proven theories and models of helping couples overcome their relationship challenges. Some of it is from Gottman, some of it is the family circumplex model, some of them is from emotion theory, some of it is cognitive. So you have these things that we use in regular therapy, and we're using it in the context of helping them in a psychoeducational manner, helping them create a situation or an atmosphere for them in where they can have this skill building phenomenon going on, and they can be of support to each other. And there's a workbook and everything included in the program. So they go into this in their computers on their own devices, and they separately do this assessment. It's quite long, almost 200 questions, and it spits out a report, and it comes out with different dimensions of their relationship and their compatibility percentages on all these dimensions. And also it classifies the relationship as either one of 5 categories, and you have vitalize, which is the top, right? Then you have harmonious, then you have conservative, and then you have conflicted, and then you have devitalized. And it doesn't matter where it lands you, you always have room for growth, because this is what this is about. That said, out of all the dimensions that this comes out with, this comparisons and where your agreeability percentages and all that stuff, it helps you in combination with this workbook, in where there's 6 very important core areas that through these 6 core areas, all of these relationship dimensions get addressed. So you're building skills to be able to manage and navigate through all of these dimensional challenges of your relationship. But the 6 main ones are communication. The communication one, it helps the individual see conflict as opportunities, to learn about the emotional experiences of the other person and how they can communicate with each other without precipitating things like ego defense mechanisms, or create fight or flight situations where trauma gets triggered and things like that. So this helps them understand their conflicts in a different light, primarily as opportunities for growth and development. It also talks about finances. So we have financial literacy involved in here. It has been the case that the couples that have the same goals, but they have different philosophies because they didn't learn different. They one learn more than the other for whatever the reason. So this helps kind of integrate and help them agree into common goals for themselves as a couple and couples for themselves as individuals. And it's all on paper. It even provides budget sheets and how to work the budgets and things like that. There are issues of intimacy is the third one. Sex without intimacy, that can happen, and intimacy without sex, that can happen too. But what are the blockages for intimacy? It, it's not about much more than what intimacy means to each individual and how are we going to again integrate the philosophies about it, and what are the blockages about understanding each other and integrating them. Spirituality, not theology, not religiosity, but spirituality. This is about living values, right? So living a value-based day-to-day kind of deal. So again, how do we integrate the different spiritualities between these two individuals in a way that is agreeable? Skill sets, all about skill sets. Closeness and flexibility. This is about our internal maps. How do we accept the proximity, emotional proximity of other people? How do we seek proximity with the other person in the context of the marriage? But it also looks at in the context of family of origin. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a expanded view of the person composition as far as those two topics. How do we get close and how are we flexible? If I didn't mention it before, the other part is the flexibility. So closeness and flexibility maps. How do we find our way to each other? Is there rigidity in here? Is there aversion to closeness, or is there a desire for a lot of closeness that is not healthy, or do we have to have closeness in one way and no other way? So all this kind of stuff. And it just come up with these two maps in there with the squares and everything, and it puts you in there where you're at. They're instrumental because you see in a year later with the skill sets how it's changed. So the idea here is to give you enough skill sets to be a support to each other, which whatever style of closeness and flexibility each person has. And the last part is my favorite one. We call it the big five, scope. So scope stands for something. So we have the S for social, C for challenge, O for organization, P for pleasing, and E for emotionality. So social is about our ideas of how do we, again, part of it is that internal maps. How do we get to the other person? Are we extroverted or introverted? That's part of it, right? So it gives you a percentage on that, where you're at with that, your style. In regards to change, which is the next one, are you open to change? And is your partner just as open as you are? Or are they a little bit more careful, and they want to be a little bit more concentrated? They're more conventional. They don't want change so much. Okay. Organizations is one person like, hey, let's just roll with it. And then the other person is like, no, I'm more conscientious. I like to do a little bit more planning than that. Again, how are we going to integrate these styles? They can look closely like each other, but most people are going to have differences, and they might be very close in here and maybe almost the same, but very different in here. And so how are we integrating all of this stuff, right? So we want to take what is happening good and what is not happening, we want to improve it through skill sets. So organizations, who is less organized, running at the door in the last minute, forgetting everything, and who's more conscientious that put everything in the car the night before. Pleasing, this is about accommodation, and in the sense accommodation that I'm talking about in here is when you have a couple and there's one that is always saying yes dear, and you ask these two people how to rate their happy, their satisfaction in their marriage, one is going to rate the marriage more satisfying than the other. Guess who's the one? It's not the one that is saying yes dear all the time. It's the one that is doing the accommodation. And yes dear, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually saying it. It means that sometimes they're accommodating the other person because the other person cannot tolerate certain stresses and they're eating it up. So they're silently saying yes dear, but they're not being heard because they feel like if they speak, that's going to put the other person out. And so they're accommodating. It's not optimal, but I can deal with it. But you do a little bit too much of it and it becomes a problem. So you want to look at that, at the styles about accommodating for each other, before it becomes a point of contention. Okay. And the last one is emotionality. Okay, is one person more calm than the other? Is one person more reactive than the other? And what's happening in here? So it's not just skill sets for us to do better in the context of the relationship, but for us to do better in the context of supporting the other person in the areas that they need to grow. Is that a deal? You like that? If you do, please give us a call, 757-304-8035. Or you can email me at lifecoach.bodymind@gmail.com, lifecoach.bodymind@gmail.com, or call me at 757-304-8035. And you can always go to my website, www.ignitebestpractices.com, www.ignitebestpractices.com. I hope to see you soon. Health and light, everybody. Bye-bye.